Hello, I'm Justin the Wizard, and once again, I invite everyone hearing, seeing, and otherwise viewing this to close your eyes if it helps you with the following exercise. And if it feels uncomfortable to a point that you wish to disengage from it, I understand. This can be a challenge for certain types of people that deal with certain types of conditions. With that in mind, I invite everyone to draw attention to their seat or their feet and feel through the cells of your body upwards. Slowly let your attention move through your cells. If you find any bits of discomfort, give your body permission to release and relax that pain and discomfort away. Continue moving up. Take your time. As your attention starts to reach into your neck, into your head, and up towards your eyes, it's time now to open them up for another episode of the Fairly Magical Podcast. Hi again, everyone. So like I said, I'm Justin the Wizard, Justin Paladino, National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach. Uh, just a reminder, I'm not a doctor, not a medical expert or anything of the sort, but I am here to provide support and accountability to people as a coach. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Elena. Elena, would you like to introduce yourself fully?
Hi, I'm Elena Lunt. I am your chaos coordinator on the Fairly Magical podcast. And I am also not a doctor or a medical professional. I'm here to offer my personal experiences and guide us a little bit with the use of some cards.
Yeah. So what do the cards have for us today?
All right. Well, today we are doing something a little bit different this time. Rather than using a tarot deck, I have got the Woodland Wardens Oracle deck by Jessica Roux. This deck is so beautiful. Um, and the Oracle cards offer a little bit less openness to interpretation. They're a little more straightforward than tarot cards. And I am very interested to see what they're going to give us today. So we're shuffling our cards with mindfulness and intention. And we're going to have our first card pulled here. We have got, all right, the rooster and sunflower encourages communication. Communication is our first buzzword. And we have the goat and the willow, which is overcoming obstacles. Interesting. And one of my favorites, the bat and hellebore. Oops, come on, see it? There it is. The bat and hellebore, which is intuition. Oh, that's one of my favorite cards. Stick. Love it. Okay. Oh, all right. Communication, overcoming obstacles, and intuition. That's what the cards are drawing us to this week.
Well, this fits perfectly with something that we've talked about wanting to discuss. To be honest, this sets the stage perfectly, wonderfully well to discuss something that's very close to the experience of many neurodivergent individuals. And we discussed some of these topics last time. Um, and what we're going to talk about with that in mind, I think today is rejection sensitive dysphoria. And this is kind of like a obsessive compulsive disorder. It's a appropriately labeled descriptor. Um, there is a sensitivity to rejection that leads to a dysphoric state. Dysphoria is the opposite of euphoria, just like distress is the opposite of a concept that we call eustress. Eustress, I talked a little bit about flow in earlier episodes, and eustress is, for example, a concept that is pursued rather than avoided, where distressing scenarios are going to break the flow. Eustressful scenarios will encourage the flow. So, an example of eustress is an appropriate amount of challenge for an individual that also yields a satisfying result. Okay, so that's an example of how distress and eustress are sort of opposites. And similarly, I'm comparing euphoria and dysphoria as opposites. So euphoria, I think most people are quite familiar with this concept of being, elated, happy at your core, and feeling positive feelings and energies. Dysphoria is exactly the opposite of that. Instead of feeling positive, instead of feeling happy energies and positive energies and having those types of intentions about your scenario that you're in, instead you find yourself in a state of dread or just uh, unregulated sense of self and kind of lost focus, all sorts of negative consequences. So again, dysphoria is a very appropriate label for this condition. And I say condition, it's really more of it's more of an experience where rejection sensitive dysphoria occurs uh, as a result of receiving negative feedback or as a result of a perceived failure that results in this sense of dysphoria in individuals. And it's very common in the experience of neurodivergent people of all types, especially because there is, I think, a tendency for those of the VAST type to receive corrections for their missed focus, right? If their attention is on something that is perceived by another individual as incorrect, and that other decides to issue correction, that correction could be received in a way that is as if it was rejection, and it triggers the dysphoria. So again, RSD describes the individuals that are sensitive to that rejection oriented dysphoria. And now I invite Elena to add any additional thoughts to this before we continue the discussion further.
Well, I'm going to say first that I learned a new word today. Eustress, that was a new one for me, and I'm filing that away. That was good. Thank
It's
you.
a good one.
It is a good one. Um, yeah, I mean, I certainly agree that in this case, the dysphoria becomes an accurate descriptor because rather than a dysfunction, meaning that something's wrong with you, the dysphoria describes the feeling. It is certainly a negative feeling when this takes hold. It's something that I'm very familiar with. um, and experienced today. As an example, I have started a new job, and there's a learning curve, obviously, and trying my best, but stressing out about things not being perfect right away, because obviously it's not realistic for things to be perfect right away. Um, but yes, I spent a lot of my day today um, very anxious, very dysphoric, anticipating that I would have let my team down, that I would have disappointed people, and that feeling that everybody's mad at me. Everybody's mad at me. Everybody's going to be mad at me um, because of the way that the day unfolded. And luckily, after a meeting with my new supervisor, it was made very clear to me that that's not the case, and everything was fine. It was okay, but of course, that doesn't erase the experience that I carried with me through the day. That that dysphoria was very present, and that it then was triggering anxiety symptoms and sending those through the roof, um, making for just all around a very unpleasant experience that perhaps a neurotypical individual wouldn't have experienced. Um, but yeah, that's how it went.
Mhm. Those of us that have experienced RSD in our lives um, can certainly feel confused uh, how do I say this? We'll see another person make a mistake, and it seems not to bother them, and it just doesn't make sense to us the same way. Um, like, what do you mean you're not taking your time to like learn the lessons of this, or make sure you understood? Or I think that part of it is rooted in this desire to have understanding of things, um, and the knowledge thirst that comes with neurodivergence. I think partly drives it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and yeah, there's a lot to it. It's also very much not a choice. Um, the analogy that I might throw out there for this is that RSD is kind of like a splinter or sliver, piece of wood, little piece of wood stuck in your finger. Until you get it out, it is going to be an irritant. And until you sort of get the information that resolves the distress, there's well, you're stressed by it. You're under a constant state of pressure from that discomfort. And it's entirely mental. So it's really a invisible. And sometimes you can like tell somebody's dealing with things if they're showing it on their face. But if they're masking really well, and that's another thing that we can talk about today is masking a little bit. Um, but if the person is masking really well and hiding their dysphoria, and it's not obvious to others, they may not be receiving the support that helps them get through that moment in a healthy way. Um, and that's where I'll go back to the rooster sunflower communication cue. Communication is very, very important to resolving RSD, and there's no medication for this that I'm aware of. It is strictly resolved by having the right information and coming to understandings, and maybe it's not resolvable, and that's sometimes the reality.
It can be, absolutely, because it's entirely, I mean, while the stimulus, the stressors or the corrections can be coming from external sources, the dysphoria is completely internalized. Um, and, there's often not much that can be done to prevent it, certainly. It can sometimes be corrected after the fact, certainly with, like you said, communication and reassurance.
But you don't undo the time that you had the sliver in your finger, right? You still had it in there,
No,
and it still
it was still
ruined a period of
uncomfortable.
time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh, it ruined your experience of a stretch of time, and that's enough of a distressing situation to be worthy of maybe a moment of self care. Take care of yourselves if you are somebody who identifies with the RSD experience. Um, and before I forget to bring it up, last week, talking about label stigma, we mentioned the work of Dr. Hollowell. And Dr. Hollowell coined the term, and I want to make sure I say it right, recognition responsive euphoria, or RRE, is his thought experimental, I'll say, um, opposite of the condition. So just like we talked about how there's dysphoria and euphoria, so that is exactly in the name, right? And then Dr. Hollowell's work, he basically looked for an opposite word of each word in RSD. So instead of rejection, it's instead recognition. Instead of sensitivity, it's responsiveness. And instead of dysphoria, it's euphoria. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that anybody that experiences RSD very likely experiences RRE as well, because RRE is ultimately the kind of the vast experience connected with excitement for the novelties that are exciting to that individual, right? Um, Dinosaur necklaces and things like that that give you little moments of joy and things like oh, I've got my gauntlets, so I've got my my scarves and all the things that give me joy, and little things that um, bring comfort, and you know uh, but really even beyond that, recognition responsive euphoria has a lot more to do, I feel, with finding like-minded people that are excited
hmm
about similar things as you. An example is identifying somebody who's just as excited about like living your feral magic truth, and discovering that you have an opportunity to make a podcast together. And here we are. So there's like this RRE for us in this experience where we've become allies in just spreading information that we find euphoric. And even in sharing about RSD, I get a little bit of euphoria in that I'm helping to spread information that is good and helps people to make sense of their experience. Thoughts on
Definitely. I
RRE?
mean, everybody wants to feel seen and everybody wants to feel understood. So even through, a negative experience like RSD, when you're finding and connecting with other people who share that experience, it doesn't necessarily fix anything. It's not going to take away your RSD in future situations, or it's not going to, um, minimize the fact that it has happened already. But it's comforting. It feels good to not be alone, and it feels good to have others around you who get it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you that shared bond, whether it's a trauma bond or not.
Sure.
Um, it just you you're not alone. You're not alone, and it's really worth a lot, especially these days. I don't know, people can be so disconnected even while being connected online in the digital world, um,
Well,
finding
I'm
genuine
noticing
connections.
I'm noticing we've got world leaders that are insisting on telling us that we're balkanized peoples. And meanwhile, my experience with people proves to me otherwise. Um, I'm sitting here in one of the United States, and Elena is up in central Canada, and that doesn't prevent us from working together here. So, why should these boundaries, um, you know, balkanize us? Which is the concept of like splitting land into separate
Mhm.
little territories. It's in the news a lot right now. If you don't know about it, you should learn. So that's a separate issue, and I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole too much. But I will talk a little bit more about masking. I'll invite you to share first.
That's yeah, that's a big topic. Um, I mean, masking is something that's definitely a very common topic among neurodivergent people and the communities that they form with one another. It's sort of a way to put yourself out in the world without um, necessarily drawing attention to the things that make you different. Um, uh, I'm perhaps too good at masking, and that has been the case throughout my entire life. But it ends up not being a great thing for me when I'm um, putting the walls up too much, and then that will spike anxiety in
Yeah,
terms of like, well, what happens if those walls come down? What happens if the mask slips and people start to see the fact that I'm a little weird, and and then
you're a lot weird.
that's
That's
going
okay
to
too.
trigger um, sort of an anticipation of RSD that I'm going to be rejected and they're not going to like me, and then you just and this and this and this and this and this and this and this. But um, yeah, keeping those masks up is a little security blanket sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, for me, I certainly, hmm, my masks were on thoroughly until a certain point. Uh, and then my diagnosis started to occur. And so it's maybe not all that surprising when you think about it. But um, until I started to struggle um, to continue masking, I was perceived as not struggling through the mask. Almost like you can almost imagine like I'll reference kabuki theater or something like that, where the actors have ornate masks and costumes and are very much portraying a very different individual than themselves in some cases. Um, Often choosing to meet an expectation or a cultural, you know, known thing, whatever it might be. Um, Ultimately, you're seeing a performance, not the real truth of an individual. And so that's where I think the masks went on because they helped to avoid RSD for a lot of people, for certainly for me, where uh, RSD is something like I identify a lot with it earlier points in my life, and then I identify with it a lot as I started to get my diagnoses as an adult. Uh, in between that, while I was highly masked and working as an engineer, I, was occasionally able to let the mask slip a little bit around certain individuals. Uh, but more often than not, I was just sort of, doing my engineering performance. And through that, I just sort of existed in a state of, um, I'll say like emotional numbness. I lacked the RRE just as much as I lacked the RSD during that time. Uh, and that's an interesting part of my experience that I'm willing to share here because I feel like it can advance the conversation a little bit in a direction that I haven't fully seen yet. It might be out there. Um, just like last week, I hadn't seen um, one of the terms that we mentioned before, but it was out there when I went and looked. So that was, a fun thing. Um, and I got a little bit of RRE from that, right? It's like, oh, others saw what I saw in the patterns. And yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
But also, masks are a whole complicated thing, difficult to understand. And everybody's masks are going to be a little bit different for them than others' masks are for their situation.
Right. And like you described, like sometimes you're not even only masking to others, but almost kind of masking within yourself to keep things down and try to maintain a sense of control over your own body, your own mind, your own emotions, which can often be hard, especially as a neurodivergent person. Um, and yeah, you kind of use those masks even within yourself as a protection.
You start to tell yourself that you are the version of you that's wearing the mask, and you start to even believe it. Um,
Yeah.
when I'm gonna when I go to therapy, my therapist and I use IFS. We'll talk about IFS later. I'm not going to make it a video about IFS right now, but this is internal family systems. Feel free to look it up, but that video is not about it. Um, what I was just going to say about it, though, is that IFS talks about the sense of self and our various parts of personality. And I feel like RSD relates more to parts of personality, and RRE relates more to self. I'm going to leave it at that. Where the agendas of our parts of personality are reflected to our sense of self, which is a non judgmental entity, uh, that there is judgment. And our sense of self would be more inclined to feel the euphoria, the
Yeah.
excitement, and share that with the parts. But instead, it's the other way around in this situation for RSD.
Yeah. Because, yeah, I mean, that rejection may not even be truly present, but interpreted or anticipated. And that can then reflect back and trigger things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with however you feel about things. That's another important point I want to
Oh,
make.
yeah. Feel
Uh,
your feels.
feel your feelings and have your opinions, and control the spaces that you want to have control of. Um, because if you don't take care of those types of things for your entire self, then you open up those paths for RSD to enter your system and disrupt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so important to sort of acknowledge what your body is trying to tell you at any given point. Your feelings or reactions to things that happen externally are not wrong. And, usually it's trying to tell you something.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, headache. Nobody has a headache without it trying to tell you something. It might just be that your nerves hurt in your head, but at least it's trying to tell you that, you know. Um, Most of the time, it has something to do with like a lack of a nutrient or needing water, or um, there are dozens of potential causes of headache. But being hungry is another example. I know as a kid, I used to get hunger headaches, and if they progressed to a certain point, I would even get like ill from the sensation where it like made me nauseous. So it's like this whole my body was compromising the need to eat by making me nauseous and then getting worse. It was trying to tell me something, but it was also not always right. Um, and that's another good analogy for the RSD experience, right? It's not inherently correct that you have a feeling. Your feelings are valid, um, but your body can make judgments about situations that are not fully realized, and that's the thing to be careful of here. And by realized, I
I
mean
know it.
entering into reality, the real world. A lot of people don't think about that word in the right way, or how I'm using it there.
Yeah, yeah, don't I know it? I mean, that was my whole day today. It's you know, my
And thank you for sharing, by
interpretation.
the way. That is a very real experience at a new job, right? It was day two, right? So,
Yeah,
um,
day
you
two at
know,
my new job.
like that's if you're not making mistakes on day two, you're not trying to do enough at your new job. Is kind of
Probably,
uh,
yeah.
my opinion. So, good on you for making mistakes or not or whatever it was because you learned and you maybe got to know the people you're working with a little better as a result too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely, once I had that meeting with my boss and everything was sort of cleared up and the situations were diffused for me, um, it does give me a lot of confidence going forward that you know this team has my back and uh, we're gonna communicate openly about things without uh, you know harboring ill will, which is of course sometimes where my mind wants to jump to, whether that's correct or not. But yeah, having that sort of reassurance was very helpful, and I'm hoping will be helpful still going forward if I can remind myself of that. I need to like write myself a note and paste it on my workspace.
Actually, that's a really good actionable piece of advice is a lot of people like the little post-it notes of affirmations and things like that for reminders in view of your workspace or just on your desk or wherever you work. That sort of stuff works for people. So if it works for you, go for it.
Yeah. 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 I think I'm going to do that.
Sweet. I'm also thrilled that the cards knew that communication got you through overcoming some obstacles and returning you back to your natural state of intuition. The cards know.
It did. Yeah. The cards do know. And, look at that rooster with his sunflower. He looks so pleased with himself there.
Yeah.
And
Euphoric. Positively
the sun
euphoric.
has returned. Yes. He is euphoric. The sun has returned after that communication, that reassurance. Good on you,
Well,
Rooster.
good on ya, Rooster. Hashtag good on ya, Rooster. There you
There
go.
you go. That's what I need to put up on my workspace. I'm just gonna
It doesn't
write
mean
"Good
anything
on
to
you,
anybody that
Rooster,"
hasn't watched this video, but
but I'm gonna know what it means. It's gonna be meaningful to me. That's all I need.
it is. All right. Well, thank you once again for tuning in to the Fairly Magical podcast. I am Justin the Wizard. I'm a national board certified health and wellness coach, and I'm very thankful for your viewership. Elena?
And I'm Elena Lunt. I'm three raccoons in a human suit.
Love it so much. Thank you, everybody. Have a nice day. Take care of yourselves.